Our opening words this morning are from the Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield. We all have, without exception, a very deep longing to give to others, to give to society, to work, to love, to care for the earth. That's true of every human being, and even the ones who don't find a way to give, it's because it has been squashed or somehow suppressed in some brutal way in their life. But it's there to be discovered, We all long for that. There's a tremendous sorrow for a human being who doesn't find a way to give. One of the worst of human sufferings is not to find a way to love or a place to work and give of your heart and your being. Our opening hymn this morning is number 57, All Beautiful, the March of Days. And please stay standing for our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So be it.
Good morning. Hey. We had a great time at the annual gathering last night. Who here was at the annual gathering? Oh boy, a lot of people. I just want to thank everyone who was involved in the skit, in putting it on, in writing for it, people who brought food, people who gave of their time to help put on this wonderful event. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. Welcome to old friends and to new friends. If this is your first time here at First Parish, there are blue cards in the back of the pew in front of you where you can fill out your information if you'd like to keep in touch with us. Also, please join us in the common room after the service for coffee hour, and stop by the welcome table if you'd like to learn more about us. We're so glad you're here. This is a UU congregation, meaning we're brought together because of our shared values, such as respect, compassion, justice, democracy, environmental stewardship, and creativity. Not by a shared creed or religious dogma. We are each free to believe and think the way we see fit. And we celebrate diversity among us, as well as in our local and our global community. We will now take 2 minutes to greet our neighbors. Go ahead. All right, all right, all right. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements at the back of the order of service. This Saturday, March 29th, there will be 2 performances at 4 and 7:30 p.m. of 3 masterpieces by 3 masters, featuring Bach, Mozart, and Purcell. This is being put on by the Music Committee, so don't miss it. You can also join my Transcendentalism class on Tuesday night at 7 here at the church. We're going to be discussing the legacy of Transcendentalism. So we're going to be talking about Emerson, Thoreau, and Margaret Fuller and the ways that they shape our lives going forward. RSVP to me if you're interested in coming to that. Next Sunday on March 30th, we have a very special Lyceum with the Rabbi Eric Asherman. It will be held after the second service from 12:30 to 2. Rabbi Asherman lives in Jerusalem and is president and senior rabbi of Rabbis for Human Rights, a respected global force for human rights. He is an activist who has received numerous awards and recognition for his human rights work. It is open to all and brought to you by the Peace and Justice Committee. In just a moment, we're going to have a stewardship moment by Mike Achillian. Mike and Carol Achillian were members of this church for almost 30 years and relocated to Amherst, New Hampshire 5 years ago. Neither time nor distance has diminished their appreciation of First Parish. In fact, they jumped at the chance to tell us about how much they love this place. Thank you for your stewardship moment today.
Good morning. Hello, Rich. So this moment came about because I ran into Rich and Nancy at Einstein's Bagels in Chelmsford. And we were catching up, and I was saying how much we love being up in Amherst, New Hampshire, and yet how much we miss this place. And Rich, in his inimitable style, said, "Would you like to come and speak, at Stewardship Sunday?" And we both said, "We'd love to come here." So it's nice to see all the familiar faces in the pews. And for those of you for whom my face is not familiar, a little background. As was said a moment ago, we moved to Bedford 35 years ago and became members of this church for 30 years and raised our 2 daughters here who get to be lifelong UUs as a result of this. And then in 2009, we moved to Amherst, New Hampshire, which is not unlike living in the 18th century in a New England community. And we absolutely love the rural lifestyle, the openness, the untrammeled nature of being there. But the one big drawback is that we're there in First Parish elected to remain here. So to be sure, we're still active UUs, and we attend the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Milford, New Hampshire. And we're surrounded by neighboring UU congregations in Nashua, Manchester, Peterborough, and Concord. But truth be told, none of them is First Parish. So there are 4 M's, I can't even say it, 4 M's that to me make First Parish an indispensable treasure. This meeting house, the ministry here, the music here, and the members here. And I have some thoughts I'd like to share about all 4. This meeting house is remarkable in its architectural beauty and history. And indeed, the town of Bedford owes its genesis to this place. It's a spiritual refuge, a space that can surround and buffer us from the travails of life beyond its walls. I remember fondly sitting in a pew, perhaps on a sunny Sunday in autumn, feeling that I was afforded sanctuary from the demands of the world beyond, and I'd watch the multicolored leaves on the trees sort of shudder in the cool breeze, and sort of reminders of all the challenges that awaited us beyond these 4 walls, but like you, was afforded the solace of this space, at least for a while. I've sometimes come to this sanctuary when no one else is here to sit and rest and reflect. Sometimes to think about all the history and all the lives that have graced this place. Many luminaries of Unitarianism and Universalism have preached here and ministered here and still do. It's remarkable that each of us gets to become a part of and add to the flow of the history of this beautiful New England building. Ministry. Some of our churches in the northern New England district, of which we're now a part, are lucky to have 1 full-time minister. You literally have the choice of ministers who are remarkably different and remarkable in their own right. I remember many years ago riding back from a parish council retreat in Maine with John. We got into a real argument about where First Parish was in its evolution as a pastoral-centered church, and whether and when and how it might migrate to a program church. I mean, we really argued. We were shouting, we were debating, and the whole time John was staring at me steadfastly, which was especially unnerving because he was driving. The one on the right. So right in the middle of all this UU Sturm and Drang, the thought occurred to me, like, who does this? Who argues with his minister, hot and heavy, about things like this? It certainly would have not been in any way acceptable in the Armenian Apostolic Church where I grew up. But this is one of the unique gifts of the ministry here that's available to anyone. Honest openness, the right and invitation to be authentic, to speak boldly, and to be accepted for it. Since that time, my family has been blessed with John's thoughtful presence, quiet compassion, and utterly offbeat humor at joyous and even at mournful gatherings of import, and we wouldn't have had it any other way. The music. We all know there are many ways to come into the presence of the sacred. And while people like me often rely on talk to invoke the divine, nothing does it more viscerally than superb music. And I'd venture to say that few other congregations anywhere are exposed to the quality of music that you are year after year. Music that's really transcendent and transforming and tubaing. Over the years, the choir has come to symbolize how I ought to think of people everywhere. How often have we been struck by how such beautiful sounds can emanate from people who appear so ordinary, and how there are different kinds of beauty that we are each capable of infusing into each other's lives. Finally, There are all the other members and friends that comprise First Parish. You know, the most important thing each of us has is our own life force, infinitely diverse and anything but infinite. So one of the most profound gifts we can share with one another is our presence, which is what First Parishioners generously bestow upon one another. It is also through your collective callings and passions that First Parishioners engage one another in matters of the world. This congregation has always had enough collective compassion to act locally as well as act globally. And here too, my family has been blessed by your care and kindness. Make no mistake, all is not goodness and light. As you use, we may be like-minded, but that doesn't mean we always see eye to eye. Indeed, this congregation has had its share of tectonic angst, but for the most part, disagreement is held in the crucible of tolerance, compromise, and reconciliation. So these 4 M's, this meeting house, the ministry, the music, and the members, lead me to these final thoughts. Around this time of year, we often encounter the words time, talent, and treasure. But let's be clear, treasure is just a euphemism for money. The real treasure is this place, and all of you, and all you do to make each other's lives rich, just, and spiritually fulfilled. It's nice to be with you again. We really miss you. Thank you.
We have some help this morning for Time for All Ages, so if my helpers would just crowd on up here with us. Okay, and you could just stand along here, and that's, that way, and like you do for choir. Thank you. So we are in another spring session of creating worship together, and during our kids' worship, we also have an offering that we take, and we sing a song that we thought was very appropriate for a stewardship day. We sing the Magic Penny song, which was written by Unitarian Universalist Malvina Reynolds, and we're going to share it with you today. We'll sign it as we sing it. We have some American Sign Language signs that we know it's not a complete translation of the song. It's just signs that usually help non-readers learn the words more too. But these are not non-readers. And then we'd like you to join with us in singing. So Jan is going to play, and we're going to sing. And do you need me down there, or are you fine right here? Fine, we're fine. And we think that the message of, we'll sing one verse and the chorus, and we think that the message of the Magic Penny song is very appropriate for a stewardship day. the children are going to, the children and our leaders today, we're going to meet upstairs in 204 instead of in the common room this morning. So as we leave, we'll be going to 204.
And we are going to sing hymn number 113, Where is Our Holy Church?
Good morning. I'm Sandy Bozanowski. I'm a member of the Lay Pastoral Care Team, and at this time in our service, we pause to share with each other our joys and our concerns. If you'd like to come forward and light a candle, please do. For those joys and sorrows, concerns that we keep silently in our hearts. And after the service, if you'd like to light a candle in private, I'll be here by the candle stand.
Wow. This is a reading by Mark Nepo. It's called For What Are We Saving? So often we put externals first. Out of worry, out of fear, out of obligation, we think we're being good Puritans by saying no to what stirs us. In the 1960s, the well-known psychologist Abraham Maslow conceived of a hierarchy of needs, in which he established that human beings must provide for basic physical needs, such as food and shelter, before they can attend to inner needs, such as self-esteem and right relationship. While this is in part true, I believe there is a dimension of the inner life that is as imperative and equivalent as food and shelter. Without the fulfillment of these basic inner needs, we are just fed and sheltered bodies void of life. Without love, truth, and compassion, all the comforts of modern life don't matter, because we are simply reduced to biological machines, not even as present as animals. Without this understanding, we often defer the risk to love. I need to establish myself or look attractive before trying for a relationship. I'll eliminate my problems first, or else my love would not be wanted. We also defer love once it is right there before us, under the guise of safeguarding our future. I can't afford to get counseling with my partner because we need storm windows. Certainly, we have to balance and make choices, but with no love in the house, there is no need for storm windows. When I was ill with lymphoma, I faced the very real possibility of dying, and suddenly the little money I'd saved, however prudent I was, didn't matter. It was all worthless. It became immediately clear that the only true purpose of money is to create possibility. I chose then to create the possibility of sharing my love. I felt desperate to share my love with others, and though in truth the money was not necessary, it was a tool I could use, and I was suddenly unlocked to use it. I called all my relatives long distance. I sent flowers to people who might never expect it. I bought a round-trip bus ticket so my nieces could visit. I started a fund for a children's choir that brings joy to so many. Once well, I couldn't go back to deferring my life under the guise of saving. I still save some, but now I feel compelled to use whatever I can afford to create more possibility in the world I live in. I use what money I have to bring truth into being, to allow generosity and compassion to flourish. Now, when I get worried over money, I ask myself, for what am I saving? My Puritan ethic drives me to be frugal, but I am stirred by all that love can do. This is the time I have in which to risk loving. It is even more of a risk to keep my love locked up and not to share what I can. I give what I can because I can. This is more than altruistic. It is necessary to be fully alive. The morning's offering will now be gratefully received. needs a sermon? We'll just, can we get more of that? Thank you both so much for being here this morning. We are so lucky. Happiness is not found in money, but in unselfish love, which increases in proportion as it is shared. I bring you a parable from the Islamic tradition. A wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw inside the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later he came back to return the stone to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you can give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone." Jack Cornfield said, "We all have a longing to give to others, to give to society, to work, to love, to care for this earth." Many of us have someone in our lives who represents to us this wise woman character. In my own life, I have a mentor who has shared his life lessons with me for more than a decade, often in the form of a very precious question. He'll toss something out, and then he'll wait to see if I've caught onto the multi-layeredness of what he has said, and then he'll listen to me ponder. Our time will come to a close and we'll part, but weeks later he'll circle right around back again to ask me for my thoughts. His keen eyes are salmon darting upstream to me. His remembering heart is like a shining pearl. He gives that gift to me over and over, and it never fails to surprise me. I wouldn't trade my time with him for any riches any of you could ever offer me. Do you have someone like that in your life? Are you that person for someone else? I don't know what enabled the woman in the parable to be able to give her stone away. Maybe she could see the hunger for it in the man's eyes. Maybe she didn't need the riches. Or maybe she did, and she gave it anyway. Why would she do that? Maybe she was able to detach from the material wealth and give what was requested because she sensed it would make a difference. My mentor thinks nothing of sharing his wisdom as a form of friendship and trust with me. He gives me the precious pearl of his attention over and over, and it is easy for him. His love is unselfish love, not because he might have wanted to save it for himself, but because his caring is deep and wide. He gives his affection because he can tell it is the most fitting gift he could give me. He matched the gift to my need. Thus, being together makes both of us happy. He's 83 now. I've given up on being formal, although he never has. And I kiss him on the cheek every time I see him. His eyes get happy like fish swimming in sunlight. Someday I won't be able to tell him that I love him in person, so I try to show him in return just a little of what he's shown me. We all have a longing to give, and giving makes us happy. One of the worst of human sufferings is not to find a way to love or a community to join where you can give of your heart and your being. When I was a hospital chaplain prior to serving here, I worked in a neonatal intensive care unit. There was a big sunlit room for the babies, all the babies who were out of incubators. Babies have a biological need to be close to someone's warm skin, to be cuddled and to feel human contact. Without it, they fail to thrive. At all hours of the day, I could enter that NICU and find women, and I do think there could have been men. There weren't in this case, but I do think they could have been this way. They were kangarooing, which is what's called when you have a baby and you put it right next to your skin. Tiny, tiny babies, not the mothers of these babies. Each of these women who came had a story. One came on her lunch break because she could not have babies of her own but wanted to care for them. Another came because she had not been loved by her own mother and found that this was the purest way to turn her bitterness into compassion. Still another came because her own child's life had been saved in this very NICU, and she wanted to help out in return. Gandhi once said, "Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony." Finding a way to give brought happiness to the receiver and to the giver as well. Since it's Stewardship Sunday, I will tell you a true story about a man who loved his church. He had a big family, he didn't have a lot, and he worked hard for a living. He supported his church as best he could, but one year he lost his job. He was afraid that he couldn't fulfill what he'd already pledged to the church, and so instead he offered to do some custodial work after hours, arranging chairs or mopping, picking up after Sunday school. He saved the church quite a bit of money since they didn't need to hire someone to shovel the snow or put out the trash. Sometime later, when he got a job, he could pay his pledge again. He continued his volunteering, however, because he loved to do it and because he could do it, and he kept that up for 30 more years. That person was the father of a minister I know, though we have more than a few people just like that around here who pitch in much the same way. If you are thinking of someone right now, you can thank them later, sometime after the service or during the week, for being that kind of person in this community. Whether their help is for giving with the building, the baking, the home visits, or volunteering in RE, the giving in any form is as important as money. And since we are talking about money this morning, here's my 2 cents on the matter. Everything we think and feel about money we have been taught. None of it is natural, none of it is genetic. In fact, in many countries around the world, people talk easily about money. They discuss what they earn, how much they paid for things, and it's not considered rude to ask about salaries and costs. When I was a student in China, I was frequently asked what my parents made for a living, if we had a car in our family, and I was frequently asked all sorts of other questions about money. It simply wasn't a cultural taboo. Their culture in the late 90s didn't have such a wealth disparity like ours did then, and even more so does now in the United States. A question about money did not signify that one was being asked about class or class background as it might here. Though the question itself was unusually straightforward, I was often at a loss about how to answer. It wasn't only that the cost of living between China and the US at the time was not comparable. A huge meal there cost only about $1, but also it was that I just simply wasn't used to talking about what my family owned. We had so very much more than what they had, though my parents weren't rich. 2 cars, they said, for one family? And instantly I felt ashamed. When I left China, I gave my bike, my clothes, my boots, and my art supplies to fellow Chinese students who really had almost nothing compared to me. I didn't leave feeling virtuous, just that it was the one small thing that I could do. The young woman I gave my bike to was someone in my class whose father had died recently and whose mother had failing kidneys. The mother would not let her daughter donate a kidney to save her, thinking it would limit her daughter's quality of life later on. The pain my friend felt at not being able to give her mother a kidney was constantly written on her face. When you have something to give and it is not accepted, that is the cause of real suffering. To feel shame at having too much, like my bike, that is not suffering. That can be cured. We have been taught not to talk about money or to ask for it, except under very limited circumstances. Most of us are taught that money is a private affair. Having too little or too much can be a source of shame or embarrassment. Yet money is also a source of status and power. Most people would like to have more money, yet most will also admit that money doesn't buy happiness. What I believe creates real happiness is fidelity to a worthy purpose and the chance to act upon this commitment. As you know, our First Parish annual appeal has begun. It's time to pledge our financial gifts for next year. I am joining you as well, giving as much as I can because I believe in this congregation as a force for good. and because our ministry touches and transforms lives and leaves something lasting and holy for future generations to inherit. Many of us have something we are longing to give to this community that we've held back till now, whether it's our ideas, our money, our time, or as Mike said, our talent. Why wait? A few weeks ago, our church historian Sharon McDonald gave a sermon about some unique eras in our church life, when we were on the brink of closing. One time, the church itself was blown to bits in an enormous gale. Another time, poor leadership and lack of funds led to the church having only 7 members total. What is a quorum for that number, I wonder? At one point in the early 1800s, the church became so liberal in its Christian views that half the congregation decided to secede, and hence we have the Congregational Church across the way. They still proudly say that they kept the theology and we kept the silver. There have been periods of disarray and discontent, and we look back shaking our heads incredulously wondering, how did it all happen? We can't imagine closing our doors for a decade because no one wanted to come. That really happened. These days, things are going pretty well around here. We fly fish, the youth sing, the Bible is exegeted at our annual gathering, some falsehoods are told, and we are in an era of healthy progress. We have 380 members, many more who have not yet signed our book but call this place home, and we have a robust staff. I can think of only a few other UU churches around here who have called 2 full-time ministers, and I count my lucky stars every day that you continue to want me here as a second minister and make that possible. Our identity in the denomination is one of visionary clarity on matters of civil rights and solid international leadership. 2 diverse Sunday morning services and a wide range of parish activities fill our weeks with more creative endeavors than any one person can take in, or volunteer for that matter. We have a building that, in all honesty, is in good shape. Okay, it does take 2 hours to heat up the sanctuary on a Sunday morning because our boiler is frankly pathetic, but we can work on that. Our music ministry is not only fabulous for us every single week, but the program raises money for outside causes, thus further supporting the mission of our church, which is to promote lives of joy and meaning. We have here a quality religious education program for our children and youth, and if you needed to witness some happiness, you could probably get a taste of it during that break between the services when mystery friends were racing around, hugging each other and giving each other their homemade gifts. It was really sweet. 7 healthy small group ministries meet regularly. We host a weekly lyceum, and an arts ministry program continues to thrive. We bring programming to the Veterans Hospital nearby and support the Bedford Food Pantry and volunteer just a little farther at the Lowell Transitional Living Center and the Prison Book Program. Our Split the Plate offerings go to a Unitarian school in India and to the United Teen Equality Center in Lowell. We are in an era when we are able to create and give of our time, talent, and treasure, and it makes us and it makes others happy. Our congregation formalized a strategic framework on paper in 2011 after an extensive participation from the congregation. Whenever I look at that detailed and specific document, it's clear that we are living our vision and mission on a daily basis. Our mission, as you know, is to promote lives of joy and meaning. Our vision is to be a community that is a transformative presence in the world through acts of service, activism, and creativity. We nourish and empower our members with lifelong spiritual and justice practices, exploration, and growth. We strive to be an ever more inclusive, diverse, accessible, and interconnected community. It sounds really good. When the team developed the strategic framework, they gave us the backbone for understanding our mission, our vision, initiatives, methods, and goals. The framework gives us a common story about who we are and what we are trying to do. However, we are ready for our next step. That was the framework. Now we're looking for a plan. Led by our parish board, we are moving towards developing a plan that has timelines, measurable goals, and says how we'll achieve these goals by describing what we'll do and what resources we'll use. A plan can be hard to articulate when the life of the church is already chugging along and working pretty well. But what's on the docket next is to think about what we want to accomplish in the next 5 years or so and to take action. We have the capacity to make our chosen outcomes real. The strategic framework suggests groupings of the 5 kinds of initiatives that we are already doing to a lesser or greater degree. Beyond our walls, activism spiritually, green justice, economic equity, and this one I just love the sound of because it's so simple and it is such a big, important idea, no others. With these categories in mind, it is up to us to decide what next audacious goals we should set and where to focus our attention. Where do we want to commit our volunteer hours and staff time? What do we want to be known for 50 years from now? The congregational conversations that you've been hearing about or taking part in are not a new initiative just rising up out of the blue. They are a continuation of a process set in motion by our own good-hearted and sharp-minded parishioners who want us to harness our incredible energy and invite everyone in to be a part of all that is already going on and all that might transpire here. The congregational conversations are a judgment-free zone, a think tank for you to consider how we can harness our incredible power and commitment to the greater good. Of course, while they're among friends, you are also invited to consider your specific part in it all. What kind of participation will bring you happiness? In closing, I would like to make a bold pitch for your financial support this year. So I will say it in my own words as clearly as I can, with a little help from John Wolfe, the Minister Emeritus at All Souls Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Why we should support this church. You want to support First Parish because it stands against capitalism and greed. It is a place where your worth as a human being is not measured by the size of your house, your ability to pay the mortgage, or your trip to the food pantry on Thursdays. This church is a place that stands as a beacon in society against superstition and fear. Your voluntary association here happens because you choose to be a person of conscience, not a follower with blind faith. Religion that is used to condemn or hurt others is a tool we do not touch. This church points to what is noblest and best in human life. Here on any given Sunday, you will find youth with petitions for prison reform, astronomers who tell us the new secrets of Big Bang Theory, and church historians who... That was awesome, Alan. That was really awesome. And church historians who remind us that our forebears were burned at the stake for their belief in freedom, reason, and tolerance. You want to support First Parish because it is open to all, regardless of race, creed, or class. There are people here who lost their house to foreclosure this year, and others who face discrimination in their workplace because of racism. I can think of at least 3 kids or teens in the last 8 months who needed a place where they could express their gender identity in a way differently from what society expects or demands. Do you remember the little boy dressed in a bright purple dress last fall? He or she could not believe that no one laughed and no one stared. This church is a safe zone for more people than we will ever know, for more reasons than we can ever guess. You want to support this church because it is a place where children come to learn that religion is for joy, for comfort, gratitude, and love. They learn that their bodies are sacred, not sinful. They know that they are wanted and worthy, and that this is the heart of our faith. You matter, and you are loved. You want to support First Parish because it has a free pulpit, because you can hear ideas expressed here by ministers and lay leaders that would get them expunged from other houses of worship. A preacher can share a dissenting view or invite us to be joiners, and you yourself get to choose how you respond to that voice. Your voice, in fact, itself is very valued here. Anyone can speak in an annual meeting, and if you're a member, you get to vote. What you say holds weight in a community that listens. Your voice shapes the present and the future. You want to support this church because it is more concerned with human beings than with dogmas. Our values guide us in the ways of truth and love, whether our beliefs are the same or not. We seek to help one another with our words and deeds, and not to hold back when we might act. We lift up the human journey not for what is glorified in our society, status and power, wealth and independence, but rather for the courage it takes to live a life of integrity, interdependence, and goodwill. Last of all, you want to support First Parish because it stands for something in a day when religion is still more concerned with platitudes than with prejudice and war. You want to support it not because it buys you some insurance policy toward your funeral service, but because it insults neither your intelligence nor your conscience, and because it calls you to worship what is truly worthy of your sacrifice. Happiness is found not in money, but in unselfish love, which increases in proportion as it is shared. May you share generously in the wide ocean of your life and in the harbor of your church community this year. Amen. May it be so. And we will sing Forward Through the Ages, number 114. If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you are concerned for its future, share its message. If its values resonate deep within you, give it a measure of your devotion. This church cannot survive without your faith, your confidence, your enthusiasm, your generosity. Its destiny, the larger hope, rests in your hands. Amen, and blessed be.
So after we did this for the first service, someone came up and said, "Do you do this kind of thing every week?" And I'd like to point out that in your bulletin, if you'll notice, there's a drawing of Joe playing the Prescott double bass, which was done by Carolyn Newberger, who happens to be the wife of Eli Newberger. And we don't normally do a vocal acknowledgement of the musicians, but I really would like to thank Eli, Steve, and Joe for playing this morning. And something else we don't do is introduce the postlude, but this is a very special postlude. It's written by a guy named Herman Hupfeld. Do any of you here know what Herman Hupfeld's other famous song was? What? No? Anyone know? As Time Goes By. And at the time they came out, he made more money on this number. His name was Yuba. He was homely, he was dumb, and so was Yuba. Just a big ambitious bum, he wouldn't do so much as chew a stick of gum, so this is news to me. I understand he's an overnight success, he's in demand why I never could have guessed. Well, he found a big bass tuba, then he bombed his way to Cuba. And the rest is history. Down in Havana, there's a funny-looking booba. He plays the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. Oh, any sap'll sell an apple, but this chap would rather grapple with his oompa, oompa, oompa. They prefer it to a boopa, doopa, doopa. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. It doesn't take him very long to get a tumble, for all the rumba lovers go into the rumble. Oh, how I'd like to be his double, for without a bit of trouble, with his oompa, 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 he can knock 11 ladies for a lupa. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. He's not a greenhorn, he blows a mean horn. A must-be seen horn. Oh, he's a whiz. Why, all Havana loves this funny-looking booba who plays the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. I can't believe it, but they tell us every peanut vendor's jealous of his oompa, oompa, oompa. They prefer it to the boopa, doopa, doopa. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. They love his oompa, 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 oom. Eli. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. He's not a greenhorn, he's not a mean horn, a must-be seen horn, 'cause he's a whiz, whiz, whiz. Why, all Havana loves this funny-looking booba who plays the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. He's getting wealthy, strong, and hearty thanks to plenty good Bacardi with his oompa, oompa, oompa. Oh, he knocked the boopa doopa for a loopa. They love the rumba on the tuba down in Cuba. They love his oompa, 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 oomp.